top 10 best days. Yeah, easily. In the motorcycling stuff. We're not talking the birth of my child and that stuff, but like getting bikes, working on bikes, this, that, and the other. Top 10 best days, and probably what will end up being my favorite video that I've ever done, and that is the revival of the donor bike, if you call it, for our 2024 SmokeOut build. So you won't miss this. So you may remember, I mentioned this a couple times on lives, but this story started months ago. Essentially, I got a call from a friend of a friend's family, so that far removed, where a loved one of theirs, her name was Natalie, passed away. And you know how that goes. We've all lost a loved one where you're upset and you're distraught, but you also have to deal with their finances and everything they own and their estate and that stuff. And Natalie was single, so their brother and sister were handling all of her stuff, her house, her car, all of that kind of stuff. And they knew she had a motorcycle. They told me a custom Harley Davidson. They knew that she'd had that for years. They didn't know if she still had it, all that sort of stuff. But they're going through the house, they're digging out the garage, and there, lo and behold, sits what they call custom Harley Davidson. And they're like, we don't know what to do with this thing. We don't know where the title is. We don't know any of that sort of stuff. And that sort of friend of a friend said, well, I know this guy. He builds motorcycles and does silly crap on YouTube. He may know something. So they called me. Is there a doctor in the house? I mean, I don't know what the hell they thought I could know. But anyway, so I was like, well, I'll come take a look at it. Sure. Now, you have to understand the situation the family's in. They're out of state. They don't know what to do. They don't know what this is. None of them ride. None of them are that interested in the bike. They know that Natalie loved the bike, but they don't know anything about what to do. And so I go to the house expecting to see a custom Harley Davidson. They give me the garage code. I open the garage and slowly, like out of a movie, I should have videoed it, but just know that I didn't do any videoing at Natalie's house or during the process of us picking it up or any of that sort of stuff out of protection for the family, because Florida's a shady state, I'll be honest, and they've got a nice house that's being painted and get ready for sale, and I don't even want anyone seeing a video going, I know where that is. You mean that house is empty? And then they break in. We ain't doing that crap. So I just did all this stuff over there that brought the Purple Nurple home, and then we'll work on it here. Anyway, so the garage door opens, and there sits not a custom Harley Davidson, but a custom motorcycle powered by a V-twin engine. So I start looking at it, check the frame up at the neck, and see a VIN number that is obviously not a Harley number. I start crawling around it, sending pictures to my friends saying, what is this? The motor, I can't see Harley anywhere on it. I found one serial number on the crankcase at the bottom. I went to S&S thinking maybe that was it. Sure enough, it was that S&S lower end from 1995. They said, oh, I think she had that bike built around 2002, 2003. No, the motor's from 1995. And I'll show you in a bit, the paint on the rear fender says 1997. So this bike was built 96, 97, 98, and the daily tank delivery has come. So we'll come back in a second. All right. So while I was in the garage, and I figured out it has an S&S lower end, so it's not a Harley motor. I see that it doesn't have a Harley VIN number. So I call Natalie's brother and I say, I'm still trying to drink all this in. Like, what is this? It's not a Harley. There's nothing Harley on this bike that I can see. It's a custom motorcycle built in the latter mid-90s, right? Which is pre-Easter egg chopper days, right? It's pre-Motorcycle Mania and Biker Build Off and American Chopper. That was all 2002. Looked it up because I was trying to Mike, did she see the craze, had a little money in her pocket and have one built? No, man, she did this 5 years before that, okay? At least 5 years. So I'm calling her, talking to her brother going, I can't wrap my head around what this is. And I start Googling, I brought my laptop, start Googling the VIN number, doesn't exist. I start trying to decode the VIN, and it's too short. I can decode that it's an American manufacturer, no name of the manufacturer, because the code of manufacturers, that code didn't show. I'm like, I don't know what this is. And her brother's like, look, Natalie was a gangster. Like, Natalie would do whatever she wanted. Didn't matter if there was rules. She probably never titled it. I would not be shocked. So I paid for a VIN search, a title search, and no, this bike has never had a title. I'm like, but she wrote it? And he goes, yeah, from time to time. There's pictures of her. I wish I had them. I don't. At least not yet. If I ever get them, I'll share them. But there's pictures of her posing next to it on the beach in Daytona. Like, she used to show this bike. So she wrote it and she showed it, but I guess plating it was never a thing. So it just sat there. And I also know This bike lived most of its years in an aircraft hangar that Natalie owned, because evidently she was a Bond villain. I mean, like, she had an aircraft hangar. So this bike that we've called the Purple Nurple, although my buddy Keith called it Prince and the Evolution, which is funny. They're always purple. I don't know why. Brown Sugar, when I bought it, was purple. Totally different motorcycle now, but it was purple. Anyway, even the same purple, I think. Anyway, so I'm talking to a brother going, I don't know what this is. Let me go home and think about it. Let me call some people, take a bunch of pictures. I'm sending pictures to people, and they're saying, I don't know what the hell that is. They're like, it looks, one buddy's like, that looks big. The motor looks big. Like, I don't know what, because you can't find size. You can't find any numbers on the jugs. The only serial number on that whole motorcycle is on that crankcase down at the bottom, and I found from SNS's site, you can search serial numbers. Yes, that's a 1995 Evo lower end. The casing, anyway. I'm assuming the crank is SNS also. The heads are TPS. I think that's the company. But that's a company that still makes super high-end vintage motorcycle heads. So knuckle heads, pan heads, shovel heads, that sort of stuff. They quit making Evo heads. So the company actually died and was purchased by somebody else, and they revived it. But they only brought back the vintage stuff. There's no markings. I'm looking at this. I mean, I've spent probably an hour staring at this engine with a flashlight, and there's no markings anywhere on the cylinders or on the heads. But I'll show you the bike. It's sat for 20 plus years. And my buddy Bill Stevens from 9x12 Customs, who builds amazing friggin' choppers, I sat there and FaceTimed with him, and he had all kinds of theories. He's like, look at those pushrod covers. Look at the... I sent a picture to Joel at JH Chopper saying, can we make a custom timer cover for that? And you'll see in a minute, Joel comes back and goes, I don't know what that is. That looks like some old school racing shit. Like, it's not a two-hole. I walked into that one. It's not a two-hole like an Evo timer cover normally has. The ignition cover, points cover, whatever you call it. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not a twin cam. Don't say that. It's not a twin cam. But it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like a 7-hole timer cover on it. Maybe you take that off and there's a 2-hole adapter under it. But the motor was built by a shop named Red Racing. I know that because the timer cover and derby cover says Red Racing on it in Boca Raton. Red Racing's been gone for years, but they're highly respected. They've been out of business for a long time. So I'll take you around this thing. The aircraft hangar that it lived in was obviously not airtight. I don't think they normally are. It's normally just, they have big doors and it's just to keep rain off of planes. So it sat for 20 years getting dew covered and then drying out, and dew covered and then drying out. And at some point, I didn't notice this. Bill noticed it. I just saw crap all over the motor. Somebody put like turtle wax on the engine and the pipes and stuff, probably trying to protect it. He was like, yeah, that's an old storage thing. You would just wipe turtle wax on everything and let it kind of do what it can to protect it. And it didn't, because the chrome has come off. The pipes are rusting. It's really sad. Because I'll tell you what, the more I look at it, the more, even though it's not my style and it's, that sort of style, it's amazing. It's an amazing motorcycle. So, all right, let's take a look at the Purple Nurple / Prince the Evolution. Prince and the new Evolution, sorry. So, starting up front, is that a 21? I didn't even pay attention. I'm sure that's a 21-inch wheel. Look at how dry rotted the tires are. Anyway, so you've got what I'm assuming is a Performance Machine wheel with matching Performance Machine discs. Those are Performance Machine brakes, okay? But they say Arlen Ness on them. There's an Arlen Ness logo right about there. So they're like Arlen Ness Performance Machine calipers. Do you see what I see? Inverted forks. There's no marks on the forks. Bill and I were looking for it. So the plan, let me just jump in here real quick. The plan for this motorcycle is for Natalie's family. I said I wanted to try and fire it one more time as it sits. Now the tank is rotten. You can't use the tank. I'm going to have to run external fuel. Battery, I don't even know if it has one. I don't even know where the battery is. I'm sure it's in the oil tank, but I don't know how to get to it yet. We'll get to that in a minute. By the end of this video, my goal is to fire this motorcycle and hear it run one more time as it sits for Natalie's family, and I'll send that video or a link to this video to her brother and sister so they can see it. And then what will happen is this motorcycle is going to be the birth of 2 new ones, which is pretty awesome. The drivetrain is coming with me in a couple little bits. That's it. The engine, transmission, rear brake caliper, and probably the clutch lever and forward control mounts are going to come with me. The rest of the bike, a full roller, is going to go to Bill. at 9x12 Customs, because he's got some really incredible ideas for building, taking a crazy motor. You'll see. I'm not even going to give his thunder away. He's going to do something incredible with this bike, and you might see it at Sturgis, not 24, but, probably 25 maybe. So anyway, so you've got inverted forks that are wide. It's set like something you'd want to take down the track, wide inverted forks. The bars are wild, not my taste, of course, but I mean, somebody fabricated that and filled that in. And then the striping is incredible. If you get up close and look, like, the paint was amazing. I'm sure these are performance machine, maybe, hand controls. I don't know. I can't find it. Well, right there, Arlen Ness. So there are Arlen Ness controls that again. Look at the chrome has just popped. No, dig on Arlen Ness. This thing sat for 20 something years, not moving. So you got Arlen Ness controls. Those are probably Arlen Ness grips, but again, look, you can see them sparkle where all the chrome is popped. Again, not a knock to Arlen Ness stuff. It's just, if you let something sit in an aircraft hangar for 20 years without getting especially in South Florida, salt, air, condensation, dry, for 20 years, it's going to destroy chrome. So these need to be sandblasted if anybody did anything with it, but that's up to Bill. Mirrors, I'm sure, Arlen Ness. This clutch lever, I think I'm going to try and save, just because I can't see it, but I'm sure that's also an Arlen Ness clutch cover. So I could take that off and have it sandblasted. We'll do something with that. The stripe work. This is gasoline. If you've never seen gasoline age, that turns to varnish. So, the tank is destroyed. If it looks like that outside, can you imagine what it looks like inside? I cannot get the cap off with my hand. The varnish has sealed it shut, so you have to destroy the cap to get it off. But then you come down. Now here, let me blow your mind here. This is steel. The entire thing. So it's all tank until about right here. And if you get up under there, it separates, okay? And then this is a welded on piece of steel that's been bent to follow the lines. But there's a separate pan under here. It's all steel. There's Bondo, I'm sure, but this is not fiberglass. That's all steel. Then you come back to this freaking incredible fender. Again, whether you like the styling or not, if you love motorcycles and know anything about fabrication, you'll know that this is an incredible machine. I mean, the work that went into it. And then look at this boat tail. It's kind of like a boat tail that they made for it. Did you get those angles right and stuff? It's freaking nutty. Then performance machine rear wheel, matching pulley. That's obviously where the plate never was, but was supposed to be. I don't even think those holes are drilled out big enough for a license plate bolt. And then that's varnish. That's old gasoline that evidently flopped on it and sat forever. That turned brown. You can see Red Racing, Boca Raton. Custom shift lever, forward controls that, again, the chrome is roached, but I'm going to try and save them, do something with forward controls, because forward controls are like $1,200 for good ones. So, and you can see, look, there's no markings on that motor anywhere. Petcock is probably shot, otherwise I'd try to save it. They even wired in idiot lights. I've never seen one of these custom choppers that has a high beam light, an oil warning light, and a neutral light. Never seen that before. The seat, obviously, is this little crazy handmade guy that it sticks down in the body to where it will not come out, and it holds on with Velcro. So it just pulls out. It does not have a key. I looked forever to try and find the ignition, and on that side underneath, there's just a toggle switch and a button. So I'm sure that's just, ignition, on, off, and start. I took the only thing I've done is I took the teardrop off the carb to look, and yeah, now my wife was like, oh my God, that's got to be roached inside. Like, nah, if it's sat with the air cleaner just together, the foam is going to come apart. When you look at the actual throttle, and I took my flashlight and shined it down in there, it's really clean inside the car. So even though it looks like this, Bill and I were wondering, was it stored? Was it put away? Is that why there's wax on the motor? I mean, yeah, it went to hell, but it sat for 20 years. Did someone put it away with the best intentions, to try and not let this happen to it, and it did anyway? I just don't know. There's no fuel in the tank, I don't believe. I can't hear anything sloshing. Then again, that might just be cement in the bottom of it. Bill intends to try and save that tank. I mean, and if anyone can do it, he can. If he can divorce an iron head, he can, do that. So now what I'm going to do is, start with some minor disassembly, because I'll show you under the seat, again, just Velcro. And I'm gonna save all this stuff and give it to Bill in Daytona. So he's gonna bring me my brown sugar chopper back that he's had since SmokeOut. He took my sugar, which is a 1990 Sporty Chop, also, you know, on a Paco frame and all that stuff. And he just ironed out some wrinkles for me that I was struggling with. It just really was driving me nuts. So he made it reliable and a little more rideable and stuff. So he's gonna bring me sugar back in March, and I'm gonna bring him the roller. So I have to have the motor out of it in the next 8 weeks, which is that's not a big deal. I bought an engine stand and everything. My plan is this. We have to take these tins off to get to the battery that I'm sure is under there. This is all one piece. See? I'm thinking the fender holds the tank on, and I'm going to take those 4 Allens off, and that'll start me down the path of figuring out how to remove the fender from the back. Again, there's no instructions on a custom motorcycle. And then that'll allow the rear of this to lift and potentially that just come off. That's my theory, and Bill kind of agreed with me. We want to know more about this motor because we don't know what it is. You know, it might just be a custom built 80-inch on an S&S lower end with some nice heads. But everyone I know is like, why would you build this sort of borderline digger style, drag style bike, spend all this money on the finest parts money can buy? I mean, Arlen Ness controls in 1995, 6, 7, all that stuff was huge money. Like, why would you do that and not go all in on the motor? And a company named Red Racing build it. So this could be 127. It could be, we don't know what it is, but I'm hoping the motor's okay. I don't believe it was parked and wax put on it if it wasn't. I think it was just forgotten about and neglected, and that's what happened. So what we're gonna do, pull it off, see if it has a battery. If it doesn't have a battery in it, I will be excited because Bill and I agree, if it doesn't have a battery in it, that means that bike truly was tried to store. They tried to store it, which would mean the motor's okay. If it has a battery in it, not the end of the world, but it would be really cool if it doesn't. And also, in their defense, how do you get to the battery? So they may not have known how to get it out. So that might be why it's in there. And then once the battery's out, we'll pull the battery from probably my Cholo bike, my Heritage over there, set it to the side or something, or maybe even just run jumpers off the dyno. I don't know. And we're going to check the cylinders, maybe put a little Marvel Mystery Oil down in them. I know the motor turns over. Somebody's already asking that, I'm sure. When it was at Natalie's house, I put it up in top gear and was able to roll the bike back and forth and hear the motor hiss and stuff. So the motor will turn over. Put some Marvel Mystery Oil down there. I need to go buy some lawnmower fuel, some mixed fuel. This is all stuff I learned from watching Bike Script Garage. He does revivals, and the dude's the best at it. So I seriously doubt he'll ever see this video. But Derek from Bike Script Garage, you're making the difference here, man. Like I'm learning all this stuff from having watched you. So I'm going to put some. I'm going to use 2-cycle oil with some oil, and it's good on the motor when it's sat for so long. Marvel Mystery Oil on the cylinders. Check spark. I'm going to take the spark plugs off. This has twin spark heads. So they're not hooked up, only 2 of the 4 are, but these heads have 4 spark plugs in them. So I'm going to pull the spark plugs and then let the motor turn over with no fuel or anything. That'll just lubricate everything up, get some oil pressure in there. Check and see if we have spark. If you hold the spark plug against the side of the casing while you do that, if you see a spark, you know you got spark. And then put some fuel in it. I have a theory, I hope anyway, that we're going to put clean, fresh fuel from a remote tank, a little bottle I got, into the motor, and a battery, and she'll fire. You know, I think she will. Check the oil level and all that stuff too. All right, let me start trying to take this rear end apart. Well, rear fender's off, and it definitely had to come off in order for the tank to come off. And when I took off the fender, there's just 2 quick release plugs, so they did that really nice, like you'd expect anything different on a build like this. But as my daughter used to say, it's a mysterious mystery. I don't know how the hell that tank comes off. I mean, like, it moves, you know what I mean? Like, it's like knock, 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 knock. But I cannot find a fastener anywhere. I'm gonna have to crawl around, get up under her. I don't have it on a lift yet, I don't on a jack yet, just because I'm not smart, and that would require 3 other motorcycles to move to even get my jack off and get my jack out, and drop the CVO that's on the jack right now. So. Where? Oh, purple motorcycle builders, did you put the fasteners for this thing? Fat, I'm sweating already, and it's not even hot here right now, so South Florida, by the way. All right, let me crawl around and see what I can find. Well, I'm both terrified and excited at what I just noticed. I knew it had an S&S carb on it, not just an air cleaner. And I just assumed it was a Super E. I hadn't really crawled around. It's a Super G. Yeah. So a Super G carb is large and intended. I just checked like S&S's website. I'm like, I know Super G is like your big giant, performance carb. And S&S says that it's recommended for a minimum 100-inch motor. So it actually says on the website, not intended for motors smaller than 100 inches. So it could be all kinds of stuff. Who knows what size those jugs are, but I'm really excited because that's really cool. I'm also now terrified because I'm building an old school skinny out of this thing, rigid Springer. And so do I need a 100 and something inch motor in a bike that weighs the entire rolling chassis of the new bike will probably weigh 300 pounds, Great. All right. Well, I still haven't found what takes this damn thing off, so let me get back at that. I mean, it's like somewhere under here, I think, is where it mounts, but there's really no room. It's like the guy who built it will know, and who knows, right? Let me keep crawling around. Welcome to today's episode of Don't Be Like Me, Be Better and Do Things with Pride. We spent many hours last night, let's be honest, having cocktails, libations, etc., while attacking the tank on the Purple Nurple. Got the fender off, as I believe you saw earlier, and then discovered something that I was aghast, as they would say. This motorcycle was built, I'm fairly certain, in such a way. This was a show bike, high compression, kind of thing, even though it was ridden and beloved by the lady who built it. I bought it from her family. She passed away recently. I'm 99.9% sure that the motorcycle body was assembled and then the motor was put in, blocking the bolt that goes in from the bottom of the spine into a captive nut that was welded onto the tank inside that entire body. We finally found the bolt. It was resting on like 1 millimeter from the rocker box, super shallow in a way that even a thin wrench could not get on that bolt. So I believe it was bolted on and then the motor was dropped in. Here's the level of insanity. Custom bikes are always, there's no rules when it comes to custom bikes. So I'm not knocking the builder at all. I'm just saying. Anyway, so that top body tank midsection the top body and midsection where the seat sat on was one piece, and it covered the battery. You getting where I'm going here? You had to take the motor out to change the battery. And I believe that's why it got parked up, because the battery was completely dead, shot, would not accept a charge, had been in there for, I believe, the original battery. This bike was built, the paint says 1997. The bottom end was S&S manufactured it, oddly enough, the month I graduated high school, which is fun. So we had to get drastic. I called my buddy Bill, who is going to be the next owner of the frame and wheels and forks and bars and everything I don't use, which is 99% of the bike. I'm using the drivetrain and the forward controls and the rear brake caliper. That's it, all right? So he was like, I'm not, I would like to try and rescue the tank. I probably can't. There's probably 3 inches of varnish in the bottom of that tank, and the rust was even out over the neck around the cap. You cannot get the cap off. It's like sealed with varnish onto the tank. He was like, you do you, man. Whatever you need to do to get it off. And so we started cutting and found, sure enough, there was a captive nut inside that tank that a bolt went through the frame into, and I don't know how you would ever get that off. I mean, I'll show you real quick what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to show you the tank because it's just too upsetting what we had to do to it to get to this, but that tank started here, and the tank itself ended there, and then what they had done is welded that skirt, for lack of a better word, that came back, went all the way back here, and sat under over the battery. And then the back fender went on and it covered that. So it was, you know, once all together was really well constructed, but it's insane. This is the bolt. And as you can see, or maybe you can't, it actually went through the bottom and was sitting on the motor. See this? This plate was on there. So the head of the bolt is under this purple plate, 1 millimeter from the rocker box. I really don't know, and believe me, we would not have torn that tank if we didn't have to. I don't think you were ever intended on taking the tank off. Like, it's just, there's no way. Other things we've discovered, things I didn't know and now understand because buddies are helping me and I'm learning every day about this stuff, is it does run a single fire ignition, meaning that each cylinder has its own coil. So you got basically a positive from each coil to each plug, and the negative from each coil grounds on the rocker box. It has a CompuFire single or dual fire ignition system in there, super high-end stuff. Compression release we discovered. I thought it had twin spark plugs. It's not. I'm such an idiot. I didn't know that those other spark plugs were compression release valves. It's just, this is a very serious motorcycle. Like, that motor is pretty freaking high-end. So what I'm going to do now is I put a new battery in it. The ignition switch accidentally, as we were prying around in there, the ignition switch got snapped. So I'm going to have to manually get in there and flip it on, which is fine. It'll be fine. And you got the starter button there. Also, the cap is broken off. We got aggressive. So I'm going to have to put some fuel. I removed, obviously, the line. And I've got my fuel bottle here that I'm going to put with 50-to-1 two-cycle oil, because there's oil in there. Yes, it's smoke, and it's not what you want to really run the motor on. But we need to put some lubrication in it. This motor's sat so long. I know the motor turns over. Don't worry about that. It's in neutral already. Yeah, so I am confident there's going to be a serious oil leak, because as you can see, there already is one. I put oil in the tank and it already started to drip. I believe the return line fitting up under there is just shot, and it's just going to spray oil like crazy. So what I'm going to do here is just put as much as, you know, soaking pads as I can, put oil in it, because I'm sure it's sending oil fine. It's because what it's leaking is old, you know. So what I'm going to do is put some fuel in it. I'm sure it's got spark. I'm assuming that. So let's assume it's got spark. And then if not, then what we'll do is we'll take a plug out, hold it against the side, and see if it does. But I'm sure it's got spark. What I'm going to do is put some fuel in there, and we'll see. I mean, the carb's going to have to be cleaned, but this is what I'm going to do, just so you know, because of this oil situation. We're going to kick that sucker over, and when she fires, we're going to consider it a win, and I'm going to kill it immediately. I do not want this thing running very long with who knows what, and oil lines and oil in there and everything else. So what we're going to do, just for Natalie's memory and for her family, is we're going to make this sucker fire for a split 2 seconds, and then I'm going to kill it, you know, immediately. And as soon as we hear it run for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, I consider that a win. And then what we'll do is we'll fight to get this sucker up on my scissor jack here, or my decent lift, or I'll figure that out so we can start the disassembly process, because the rear wheel has to come off so that I can get the rear brake caliper and mount bracket, and the mount for the caliper off. I have to get the front forward controls off, rear brake master cylinder, which seems to be working, by the way. Like, it has pressure. Like, it's not, yeah, it does, you know, I'm surprised here. So I'm going to rescue that, do a rebuild kit on that. There's some stuff that'll get powder coated, but really it's just going to be the forward controls, the clutch lever I'm going to use, and the rear brake and the motor. And from that, the pipes will go in the trash because they're shot. They're absolutely shot. They're just rusted to hell. Carb's got to come off, be thoroughly cleaned, lots of polishing on the motor and stuff. And then this roller, what's left, is going to my buddy Bill, who builds amazing choppers. 9x12 is one of those really good home builders, to the point where he really can't be in garage build competitions anymore because he's too good at what he does. So that roller is going to be rolled around back on my back porch. That's the kind of neighborhood I live in, can't you tell? We're like choppers on a back porch kind of neighborhood. And then in March, it's only for a couple weeks, and then in March it's going to go in my toy hauler to Daytona, and then I'm going to trade Bill, not trade, I'm going to give him that roller, and I get back brown sugar that he's had for a while, and we'll be good to go. So cross everything you got, because I just don't know what she's going to do. And yeah. I have a camera girl. So, oh, top 10 most nervous moments in the garage for sure. What we got is the 50-1 fuel run straight into the car. I have not cleaned it yet. I just want to see if it'll fire, and if so, I'm going to let it run until I can wrestle that ignition switch off, which is broken from our deviant behavior last night working on this thing. And now I can't find what, there it is. This is now the key, this little switch. So I know we're going to have our idiot lights. Oh, this is scary. Or no, or not. Get over there. There we go. See? So these are the idiot lights, so oil pressure and neutral. And that would have been high beam, that's broken. Whew. I guess enrichment valve on. Fuel is flowing. Yes. Yes. Ready?
Yep.
I know it's going to spray oil like crazy. Whoa!
Was fire supposed to come out of it?
Yeah, that can happen. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Probably going to flow.
Should we move that fuel away from the...
Let's try compression release. Alright, we don't have no juice anymore. Alright, stop. Look at the old school Pro Monkey video here on a GoPro. Yeah, so broke a camera, I think, on New Year's Eve. It's now New Year's Day. Many days after we started this process of trying to get the old chopper to fire over before we pull the motor out. And at some point, my good camera got bathed in bourbon and Coke, and evidently they're not a fan of that, and I think it just killed a $700 camera. So we're GoProing it today because it's what I have, all right? So probably better because I'll clamp this onto the handlebars and you can watch me catch fire, because a second ago I decided I'm not going to run the 50-1 now that I've cranked it over so many times where I get it to fire. I'm like, oil pressure's good. I believe it's just puking oil out of the vent line. It's not a leak. Thanks for all of you that commented, like, check that. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Can't even see it. The back tire is flat, will not hold air, and so I can't jack it up to even really get in there and see. So I think that's what's going on. We'll find out shortly. Do I have lights? Yeah, whatever. I just can't see. So what I'm going to do now is try and crank it over with some fuel that I pumped out of the wife's orange bike and doused myself in 93 octane. So when the carburetor spits fire, it will ignite me and it'll get views, because that's all that matters, right? Just getting views is all that's important. So I need to plug the battery tender in because battery might have gone low since then. Spent all morning cleaning and rebuilding the carb. I bought a basic a basic SNS rebuild kit for the Super G that's on this, and replaced O-rings and all that stuff, the accelerator pump stuff, and took it all apart, soaked in Berryman before I went in there and manually cleaned and polished a bunch of little fittings. And carb I'm happy with now. So it was pretty varnishy before, so I'm hoping that's what the problem was. Jets were pretty clogged, and so she probably wasn't feeding the motor. So let me get this set up and we'll see if she'll crank over. Alright, so battery tender's plugged in, put some more juice in it. We've got oil-soaked rags next to this is fine. It's all gonna be fine. So let's find what is essentially the ignition switch right now, because the switch got broken when we pulled everything apart. There it is. It's like the key. Pull that oily rag off the battery. We will turn on the petcock here on my remote fuel bottle. Bought that on Amazon. You need one of them if you're gonna be doing this kind of crap, because the tank obviously cannot be used. So you can see she's feeding. And gas isn't coming out yet. That's cool. The float was fine, all that stuff's fine. I still changed the hardware around the float, stopper and all that, so we really should be, I mean, we shouldn't be fine. I'm just saying that it's not the carb now, I wouldn't think. So let's turn it on in this really weird Okay, so we have idiot lights on. Believe it or not, this bike had idiot lights. Oh man. Can you hear my nervousness? And I don't have throttle cables because those went to shit, so I had to cut them. What the hell? How do you even get in there? Yeah, there we go. Choke. Oh, compression release. Not yet. All right. Let's flood it. Hang on. I sure wish that did something. Well, she started. I gotta hear it again. All right. Well, I can confirm that we're once again a GoPro YouTube channel like we were when we started. We've come full circle because my damn $700 camera I used to make these videos is dead. That's great. And the lawn's being done now. So let me go ahead and shut this off. We'll start over again in a minute. So, circling back, sit rep, whatever you want to call it. We had it running. It fired. And then I screwed with the choke and let it die, and then it wouldn't start again. Why? Now, because, seriously? Jesus. Be back in a minute. I apologize for the background noise, but we're just gonna have to push through, otherwise we're never gonna get this done. So, we had it running, I screwed with the choke and let it die, and then it wouldn't start again because the starter is dying. Which doesn't surprise me now, because now that we've diagnosed what I thought was a second set of spark plugs, just from looking it over real fast, and those are compression release, manual compression releases on the cylinder. So you pop those in before every time you start the bike, and if you start it and it doesn't start, you have to press them again. And I can see where the previous owner, didn't know her again. It may not have been enough starter for this motor. I'm not knocking anybody. May not have been enough starter for this motor, or maybe just the compression of it just wore it out. This starter also sat for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like there's a billion things. So the starter, it will engage, and then every once in a while, grind real bad. So it's dying. So I'm gonna give it one last shot and see if I can get her started today, and just let it run for a while, let it eat the bit of gas I have in my remote bottle here, just to get things moving and stuff. When it did start and ran, it sounded good. The motor sounded completely healthy. I have zero concerns. I pulled the plugs out and they're a bit dirty. Clean those up a little bit and put them back. But if I can't get it to start again, I'm okay with that. But I'm gonna try one last time and see what we can get. And if it starts, I'm just gonna let it run with the choke, the enrichment valve up for a while, and just let it get good and warm. But if not, again, I'm satisfied. So let's see. All right. Janky, questionable ignition switch on. We've got compression release pushed in. Why one and not the other? I don't know. Oh, because I was testing them. I tested spark also, by the way. I took the plugs out, held them against the case, and we got good spark, so that's not a problem. And the carb's been fairly well rebuilt, honestly, and cleaned up, so I'm satisfied with that. So now we're gonna go remote fuel bottle on, fat guy in the way. The bowl's probably pretty full anyway, so I'm not real worried about that. Choke on. Ah, so close. It was starting, but you can hear that starter. Starts taking a dump. Oh, yeah, see? As soon as the starter gets warm, it stops working. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll try again in a second. I think we're gonna have to call it on that starter because I just let it sit for a while, came back out and gave it a shot, and I did that screech where the motor and the starter motor is just, it's done. So I've been looking, and not a big deal. I put a new starter in the Sportster chop when I rebuilt it, just out of an assumption, because Sporty chop starter was like $150, $200, wasn't that bad, and I kind of figured it's one of those weak links, so let's just do it. So I changed that out as part of that build. I kind of planned on doing it on this one as well. I'm glad I don't have to buy a carburetor, so that's good. It really wasn't in that bad a shape, other than the varnish that was in there. So I'm gonna start shopping right now. Put in the comments, those of you out there that are more experts on this than I am. I asked my buddy Bill, you know, what starter would you recommend? And he goes, I don't know, my starter's my leg. I'm like, all right, pal, I get, you're cooler than I am, I get it. He didn't say it like that. But he was like, I'm not really sure. So I would really appreciate if you put down in the comments any recommendations you'd have on a starter. Size of this motor. Poppy on the live stream on New Year's Eve said that if I can pop the timer cover opening and figure it out, but it's looking like this is a large motor. Like we don't know. It's 100 plus inches, 110, 117, 127, who knows? There were a lot of different sizes back then, especially since it's not S&S jugs. So I'm gonna need a powerful starter. An OEM Harley starter is not gonna get it done. Probably gonna need something with lots of torque. I've read stuff about all balls starters being good, and then you got someone who says they're not. I don't know, and I have, you know, I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying, like, everyone's got an opinion, right? So, but I would love to hear yours. Like, what starter would you recommend for a big inch Evo high compression motor? I'm gonna start looking. I've seen them up to $500. I've seen ones that supposedly have great ratings for $250. So, you know, help me. I'm trying not to blow money like crazy because this is not a sponsored build. This is all, I mean, the revenue from the channel and you guys that are members, of course, thanks again, you're paying the bill. But I'm not blowing money like crazy on this thing because nobody's giving me free parts, writing checks or anything like that. I got to, you know, out of my pocket here. So comment down below. What starter should I get? Next step is going to be wrestle this thing up on a jack because the back tire will not hold air. So it's like sitting 1 inch off the ground. There's no jack that'll fit under this thing, even my little scissor jack. So the wife will help me wrestle that up on a jack. We'll get it up in the air and we'll start tearing it down. I can't change the starter in the bike as it is because the oil tank's in the way, and I'm not going to take the oil tank out to do that, to get it to run one more time and put it back. But we know that Natalie's motor runs. It runs, and it runs good. So I think that's all we got. I think we're moving forward, man. Like, the frame is ordered. This is what I have so far, and I'll do a whole video on parts. The frame, wheels, forks, gas tank, rear fender, sissy bar, and oil tank, and axles and stuff like that are ordered. They will be here when they're done. Because, you know, when you order a frame, it's not like they have them sit on a shelf. They build the frame, so that's being done. Whole bunch of little odds and ends. I've bought some really premium parts this time. Certain things that I was satisfied with on the chopper, on the Sportster chop that we did before. Like, they're not bad stuff. I just wanted to kind of bump it up a notch because I feel like this motor deserves it. We've ordered some stuff from Prism Supply, not Prison Supply. Yeah, no, it's not Prison Supply, it's Prism Supply. Really nice stuff. I got their throttle, which I'll do a whole video on. This thing is like jewelry. It's so beautiful. Paid for it. Nothing provided again now. Don't get all upset. And a whole bunch of other stuff from some top-end, you know, companies that on the way that I've ordered. So that's it for now. I wish I had like a glorious, yay, look at it run and ride it on the street. That was never going to happen. We were just going to get it to run. So what do you think? What do we do from here? Stay along for the journey, y'all. This is going to be a lot of fun. We got to get this thing done by September. My goal is really to probably have it at Sturgis. At one point, I was like, Daytona. I'm like, you out of your freaking mind? That's like 6 weeks. Like, there's no way. So we will not be in Daytona. Brown Sugar will be, though. And then we'll have her done by Sturgis. That's the goal. Freaking out. Thanks for coming along. Love you all to death. Take care of each other. We'll talk real soon. Bye.